Okay, hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking101 here, and this here's my cowlick. Say hi, cowlick. Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Tekking's cowlick. I don't go away. All right. I have no idea what to make a video about today, which is not an unusual thing. I've been doing this for a while. I'm sure many people out there could extrapolate, sometimes he just doesn't have video ideas, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I wake up and I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. The problem is there was no chapter this week, okay? So nothing immediately for me to jump off of the chapter to make a video about and talk and discuss, like King's species last week. That was a good jumping point there. Stampedo just came out in Japan, and I have read Artur's description of the movie. He pretty much lays everything out. If you want spoiler-filled discussion on Stampedo, go check out Artur's page. I have read it. There are definitely things in there I'm gonna make videos about, but I haven't watched the movie itself yet, and I feel like I really should watch it before I actually discuss it, in terms of YouTube, alright? But that'll definitely be some videos coming down the pipeline. So here's what we're gonna do. Right here, I got a stack of One Piece tankobons. Yeah, they're just random ones I grabbed off my shelf. I think that's like Dressrosa all the way up to Wano, yeah. So, what I'm gonna do is this, and I'm just gonna kind of throw them back here, and I'm gonna do a little bit of a shuffle with my eyes shut, and just gonna grab a random one, and no, I'm not feeling that one. Not feeling this one either. Which one is, you know what? This one. This one is the gold mine right here. I'm gonna open this up to a random page, point to a panel, and whichever character I point to, that's what the video's gonna be about. Or if it's a town, we'll talk about that, or a devil fruit ability, or whatever it is, that's what we're gonna do. Alright, what are we gonna do? This? No, not this page. Exactly 3 back from this. No, 4 back from this page. Alright, here we go. I really hope I'm not pointing at like a random nobody character. This is going to be a very short video, probably only about 17 minutes if it's a random character. Alright, you guys ready? Here we go. Video about this random guy that was standing here when Luffy attacked Doflamingo with his King Kong gun. Yeah, alright, so let's try that again. Random book. This seemed like a good idea at the time, I was like, alright, I don't know what to talk about. I'll just pick a random topic and we'll just go with that as a jumping board. Alright, this is a good volume. I'm feeling it. This is a good volume. It's feeling special. Alright, so here we go. Zoro, I guess. But he's talking about the Birdcage. So video about the Ito no Mi. Alright, the Ito no Mi. Perfect example of a fruit at first glance. You would see it and you would just be like, oh, it's the ability to manipulate string. That's cool, I guess. You can stitch up any of your clothing. That might be useful. It's sort of like the Gamu no Mi in that respect. It's just like, if you're just looking at that ability, like the power to turn into rubber, you wouldn't immediately think, like, oh yeah, it allows you to increase your blood pressure to, move super fast, like go all Kaioken and zip around. Or it also allows you to increase your bone mass and your muscles in order to turn you into a bound man, like, you don't immediately think about that. That's the cool thing about Oda, though. What you do is that you take an ability that doesn't seem like much at first, and you bend it and you twist it with the particular character that has that power, and they're gonna create a unique fighting style around it. I'm sure if somebody else had the Ito no Mi, they might be useless with it. I mean, it might just be a regular tailor or somebody that finds the Ito no Mi, eats it, and just spends the rest of their lives using the power to just stitch up clothing and stuff, never really looking into what it could really do. Same thing with Luffy, having the powers of the Gamu no Mi. Somebody else that might have it might just use it as like parlor tricks, okay? Not everybody in the One Piece world is a pirate, but Doflamingo certainly is. It's just that Doffy, he likes things a little bit more higher class, nice suits, perfectly tailored, swirling some wine. That reminds me, I have yet to watch the final episode of Golden Wind, when they defeat Devalvo and everything. I haven't watched that yet. I really need to get into that, because I know what happens, but I really want to see it in the the anime, right? So, yeah, Doflamingo, kind of in the steps of Beiji, he's sort of like a crime boss, okay? And he has the power of the Ito no Mi, and he got that power when he was very young. Treble, at that point, I mean, Doffy, he already had sort of the devil on his shoulder, but Treble sort of became like the other devil on his shoulder, where it's like most of his life is like, hey, all that crap your dad did, he's horrible. You need to get rid of him. Your mom died because of that idiot. You need to take your brother, need to get the hell out of here, right? You need to build up your own criminal empire. And then Treble showed up and was basically like, yeah, dude, you need to build up your own criminal empire. So, Treble, upon meeting like 10-year-old Doffy, presents him with a pistol and a devil fruit, the Ito no Mi. No idea where Treble obtained that fruit. He had already eaten the Beta no Mi at that point, so he couldn't consume it. So he might have just found it at some random place, or they were their little crime family. They were kind of like a backwater, crime family at that point. So who knows? Maybe, somebody found the Ito no Mi, and Treble, like, and Pika and Diamante, they like mugged the dude, and they took all his money, and they also found a devil fruit. Who knows exactly how he found it? But anyway, yeah, so Doffy ate it, and he spent decades learning how to master it. Okay, so the initial power of the Ito no Mi is, you can make strings. How useful is that? Well, they're very sharp strings. You can create strings to just slice things open. So all of a sudden you got like slicing powers. You don't even need to carry a sword or a dagger or arrows, because these are like the really good close range and long range attacks. If you want to fight with somebody with a sword, all you got to do is create strings coming off of you and then just like clash with them that way. Or if you want to attack somebody from a distance, you just fire off a string from your fingertip like a bullet, and then just pew, 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 and then you're down. Doffy's kind of base ability, kind of like his equivalent of Luffy's Gamu Gamu no Pistol, is Pentachromatic Strings, which is an amazing name. I love it. 5 colored strings, okay? So he creates a string from each one of his fingers and his thumb. The thumb is not a finger, remember that, kids. And then he just basically clashes with people using those strings. But, beside that, Doffy doesn't even need to go balls deep into a serious battle. He doesn't need to break out his strings and, like, clash with people like this in order to defeat them, okay? Doffy, hold on a second, actually, because this is a Doffy video, have this on standby at all times. He doesn't even really need to fight people, because another application of his string fruit allows him to literally restrain anybody he wants. And he could do this one of 2 ways. He can probably actually do both at the same time, honestly. He could do it the traditional way by just taking his strings and just wrapping them around his opponent, because he can literally generate as many strings as he wants, and they're essentially invisible. I mean, they're not really invisible, but they're strings. They're like fishing line, okay? It's not like twine or anything that's kind of bulky and you can see it. It's like fishing wire, or like, razor wire or whatever, okay? You really can't see it, especially if he's like creating a bunch of string at once. Like, even if you might be like the light from the sun might catch like some of the strings and you can kind of see them, there's probably way more strings that you can't see. Plus, he's an awakened user, so he can literally turn the ground and buildings and trees and signposts and mailboxes into strings. So, when you fight Doffy, you're essentially screwed, if you're just a normal person. There's no way that you could even probably get even close to him for him to even bother pulling out strings. Now, Doflamingo, every now and then, he is a very strong physical fighter, alright? You saw those abs, okay? So he might get into a fight with you if he wants to maybe test your metal or something, and just like Sanji clashed with him and he's like, oh, you're pretty strong or whatever. But he doesn't need to. If he's busy, if he's on a time crunch, or if he just doesn't want to bother with you, if you're just so lowly, he doesn't even care. He can just snap his fingers and those strings would just wrap around you wicked tight, and it just like, you can't move, and you can't really break them unless you're also using hockey, or if you have some like ridiculously high physical strength stat. Maybe like a Rouge, when he does like that karmic punishment thing, maybe when a Rouge gets all like hulked out, maybe he might be able to break the strings. But really the only way we saw somebody break the strings with any sort of ease was when Luffy went into Gear 4th, Bound Man, and Doflamingo tried to use his Parasito thread to invade his body. Luffy just snapped those strings with his hockey. So yeah, you could do it that way too. That's the other way he can restrain people. Instead of just restraining them like this with the strings on the outside of their body, he can literally send the strings inside of the body, okay? His Parasito. Get it? Parasite. Ito means string. Parasito. I love you, Oda. Actually, I love Doflamingo. Doflamingo coming up with that, that was pretty clever. That means even though all the crap Doflamingo, I mean, you don't piss him off, alright? But he has a sense of humor, and it's kind of punny. Oddly enough. Alright, I kind of want to see what Doflamingo does on his days off, you know, before Luffy and Law and everybody invaded Dressrosa. Like, what was a daily life with Doflamingo just chilling out in Dressrosa, right? Was he just walking around town throwing puns at random individuals in the town? You know, I don't know, that was his life. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, okay? And then Luffy showed up and Law and they just screwed up everything, right? So Parasito, he can immobilize you, but that's not really fun, you know? There's more to it than that, alright? It's being able to manipulate you like a puppet, essentially. And, you know, once again, he could do this from the outside. He could just use his threads to, like, grab all of your joints, like wrap a wire around your wrist, and your fingers, and your elbows, and your shoulders, and your knees, and everything, and he could just move you around like a puppet on strings, or he can invade your actual body and, like, hijack, you know, maybe not hijack your nerves exactly, but with the threads, like, so thin and small, and he could probably make the threads even smaller than what we see. You know, he can maybe even split the threads so they're even tinier, so he can really, like, invade every aspect of your body without actually causing, you know, internal damage. He could totally do that, too, if he wanted to. I mean, just imagine this horror show. If Doflamingo, if you really piss him off, he takes his one finger, he fires a single thread into your body, like right here into your freaking heart, and then he just makes that one thread just kind of multiply and expand and just creates more threads, like funneling more wire and, you know, string into your body until string, like, it's just like spaghetti just erupts out of every orifice in your body, out of your mouth and your nose and your eyes. Strings are just whirling out of everywhere, just, and then you just finally drop. You know, he just, like, he could do it, like, really, like, surgically. Like, he could probably just wrap a string around, like, your major artery. That would be another horrific way to do it. Fire one string into your heart, and then have that one string just wrap around an artery, and just pull it taut, and then you'd have a heart attack, like, right there, and fall. So, a lot of grisly ways he could really manipulate you, but once again, Doflamingo, like, unless you really, really make him sore, unless you get his, like, brain vein a-poppin', you know, he's really just gonna mess with you. That's something else I could kind of see Doflamingo doing, just walking down the street every day, and just being like, you know what? I wanna see those two people get into a fight. Hold on a second. Parasito. Why'd you do that, huh? Why'd you do that? And he just, you know, he could just, like, manipulate people with, like, his two fingers, like, these people have no idea what's going on right now. Oh, it's a street fight. Everyone's paying attention to them, you know? It's like, oh, yeah. And then Doffy shows up. He's like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, nobody fights in the kingdom of passion and toys and love. Come on, guys, get together. Oh, King Doffy, you're just so amazing, right? You know he was just screwing with his people like that, you know, just for his entertainment factor alone, right? So he has some other attack names. Spiderweb is one of my favorites. It's a defensive technique. He just puts out his palm like this, and a spider web just erupts out of his palm, which proves, like, he's not like Spider-Man, like, shing shing. I mean, he could if he really wanted to. I mean, he could do the wrist maneuver and shoot string out from there, but it really does seem like he can emit string from any part of his body, or at least any part of his hands, you know, from his fingers or his palms or, like, his wrist shooters, I guess. So Spiderweb, though, that's just like a defensive maneuver, okay? It just basically sets up a wall right in front of him. Anything that punches it is just gonna kind of like boing, just bounce right back, okay? So it's not gonna be able to hit him. He has Overheat, where he creates a very large string. That's something else. I mean, he can make strings super tiny. He can also increase their girth, okay, to the point where it's more like a cable than a string. So he can create like this super long, super thick wire, and then just kind of like whips it back, and then just with the air friction and everything, he just whips that sucker back so freaking intensely with all of his strength. Maybe adds hockey to it too. By the time it actually whips at the opponent, that thing is like super red hot, and just on top of slicing through anything it comes across, it'll also burn it down. Alright, so he can easily start fires with that ability. Kind of similar to Luffy's Red Hawk. You know, Luffy uses Gear Second in conjunction with hockey, air friction to kind of light his arm on fire. Kind of something similar with Doffy. Just by, you know, whipping up enough friction, he can create something really red hot to attack his enemies with. That's a cool cool maneuver there. It sliced up a big chunk of Dressrosa when he used it. His strongest technique that we saw was when he was fighting against Luffy Gear 4th. You know, he was doing his King Kong gun, and Doffy's answer to that was like, oh, you're just making your fist bigger. Okay, well, I have a little bit more finesse here, right? And you've really pissed me off today. So the first thing he does, he throws up a spider web to kind of just, you know, block the attack. And then he creates, you know, 16 holy bullets, God Thread. And he uses his awakening, turns the ground into string, and then these 16 just huge spikes of string just come up from the ground. He coats them in armament hockey, and then he calls it God Thread. All right, it's like 16 holy bullets, God Thread, though. And then he shoots them all at Luffy, and then Luffy, of course, uses King Kong gun, and it struggles a little bit when it hits the threads, but it bursts through all of those, and it bursts through the spider web, and it slams into Doffy and pile drives him right into the ground. But still, though, probably one of, if not the absolute strongest move he had at that moment, utilizing his awakening, utilizing armament hockey, which he's really good at, creating a defensive wall. I mean, honestly speaking, from a practical perspective, that seemed like it should work, you know? Like, alright, I'm gonna throw up a defensive wall to block the initial punch, and then I'm gonna use these threads, which are all really strong hockey-infused, you know, spikes with my awakening, and I'm just gonna pierce right through his arm, and I'm just gonna run him through. Probably the way Doffy was picturing this was like a few of the threads just rip through his arm, and then a few others just rip through his body, and Luffy just gets turned into Swiss cheese. Okay, and then that's how he wins the fight. Maybe if Doffy threw up maybe a few more spider webs first, you know, maybe I should make like a triple, quadruple, maybe a septuple layer of spider webs before Luffy actually, you know, punches me with that giant F-off fist. Probably still wouldn't have worked because, you know, it's like, alright, Doffy, I'm the main character and I have this badass new form and I have a giant fist. The battle's gonna be over in about 5 seconds, regardless of what technique, you know, stringily do kind of thing you pull out. It's still not gonna end well, right? So yeah, Luffy wins, but Doffy, you know, he's still alive. He just got knocked out for a little while, right? He's got a few other supplemental moves. One move is his Dark Knight. So on top of a Spider-Man reference, we now have a Batman reference. Okay, that's good. Actually, the other day, I was in Barnes & Noble, and the lady was very nice. She gave me this DC Essential graphic novels. So I'm not really that into comic books, but hey, there's a new Harley Quinn thing coming out, so that's cool. Green Lantern, Rage Planet, that thing looks badass, you know? Okay, so whatever. But yeah, his Dark Knight, though, or his Black Knight. Sorry, Black Knight, not Dark Knight. Somebody probably already... This is literally a video I'm pulling out of nowhere, okay? Did not check the wiki. There's probably a bunch of his techniques I'm forgetting. I'm just remembering the most prominent ones, okay? His Black Knight. Whatever. He creates a clone of himself made out of string. That's what it's about, okay? It looks just like him. He can talk and everything like that. The only way that you would find out that he's not the real Doflamingo is when you, like, go to slice off his head like Heroes did, or you try to cut him, there's no blood in there. It's just all string. So if you slice off Doffy's head, or the Black Knight's head, the head would hit the floor and it could still talk and they would just begin to unravel. Abdul and Jeet also found this out when they took, like, their pitchfork and rammed right through Doflamingo like, shing! Like, oh, did we actually defeat a warlord? And like, no, the string just begins to unravel. I don't think it was really shown if Doffy could create more than one of those. Like, because you'd figure, like, if he really wanted to, he could just make, like, an army of himself to go and fight the enemy. But maybe, you know, it takes a lot of control, because it's like, you're not just manipulating a rando, you're manipulating yourself, basically, or an image of yourself, so maybe it requires, like, an entire hand. Maybe he can make 2 at once, but you'd figure there would definitely be an upper limit. He wouldn't be able to control like 100 at the same time. Maybe like 10 at the absolute maximum, if it's just like, you know, one puppet for each finger. Maybe he could do something like that. Also, that brings up a question. It really does seem to be that the strings are psychically controlled. So, when he does his Parasito thing, it's not like he's actually manipulating every single facet of that person's body, like every finger, every toe, every, movement of the joints with just his own fingers. It really does seem, because he has complete dominance over string, whenever Doffy's string invades your body, he could just kind of psychically manipulate the string and the way you move. Okay, so it's not just like, all right, hold on a second, I've invaded you with this single string, I'm just gonna kind of because if that was the case, the body would just be like, it wouldn't be very effectual as like a battle puppet. You wouldn't be able to fight somebody that well with just like being able to articulate with just a finger alone. You would have to have like more psychic control. So for all intents and purposes, whenever Doffy's string gets in you, he has complete control of your body. Just think of it like that. You might still be able to talk and voice your own, like, oh, please stop, get away from me, but you won't be able to control your body at all, right? So that's Black Knight, though. He can make a clone of himself. His Birdcage is probably his most famous technique. That's his lockdown move. That's his, you've pissed me off so sufficiently. You got the brain vein popping, and I can't let anyone leave. Well, alive anyway. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cover the entire island in a string cage. It's gonna slowly close in, shredding everything in its wake. You can't get out of it. It blocks all Den Mushi, reception. I don't exactly know how that works. I honestly don't. Maybe you could say, like, Doffy. Well, later on during Totland, we did find out that there are things like horned Den Mushi that can actually jam other Den Mushi's like reception and stuff. So maybe like Doffy, if he's using Birdcage, he could take a horned Den Mushi and attach a string to it, so the effects of that horned Den Mushi radiate throughout the entirety of the Birdcage. Other than that, you would have to say that like his strings are so sharp they can cut anything and everything, even if it's not physical. So they can even slice up the psychic wavelengths of the Den Mushi as they try to escape. The wavelengths are leaving and they just get sliced apart. I don't know the explanation for that. Could he use his observation hockey to jam it? I don't know, but Oda basically threw that in there just so they can't just take out their Den Mushis and be like the Marines can't. Yeah, Doflamingo went crazy and locked us in Dressrosa, and there's a giant birdcage, and it's closing in, and I'm pretty sure we're all gonna die. Report back, Marine HQ. Yeah, we got 10-4 on that, buddy. We'll be sending an admiral. Don't you already have an admiral? Yeah, Fujitora is stuck in here too. Gotcha. We'll send Kizaru. He'll make short work of that birdcage before dinner time. Awesome, thank you. Like, that would have been what they would have done. They would have been like, okay, Doflamingo, he's going crazy. There's a bunch of Marines on this island. Pretty sure he doesn't have the world government and the Marines in good regard anymore. Pretty sure he's trying to wipe us all out. Please send Kizaru or Akainu or somebody else to help us out of here. And then they would have done that, right? So that's the reason it blocks all transmission. Even if you use hockey with the birdcage, it doesn't seem to be like you can cut through it. You might be able to slow its constriction. That seems to really be the only thing you can do. Like Zoro and Kinemon and Kanjuro, they all hockeyed up their blades and clashed, and Fujitora did it too. And Fujitora, admiral level, pretty strong dude, clashed with the birdcage, and they were able to kind of slow it up a little bit. Everybody at once was like pushing it back. It was able to stop it very briefly, okay? Nothing like, stopped it for good. At best, you could slow it down by all pushing on it at once, but even with those hockey blades, they weren't strong enough to really slice through it. The birdcage, in a lot of respects, is symbolism of oppression in the One Piece world. Sabo even brought this up when, during the Gray Terminal burnings and everything, and he was being cradled in Dragon's arms, Sabo was grabbing him. It's like, you need to, it's like a birdcage, it's so suffocating, I just want to get out. So that's really what Oda was going with here. Don't don't try to think of the logistics of the birdcage too much, like how it stops Den Mushi reception, or how all these really strong warriors with hockey blades can't slice through it. Like, why is this birdcage in particular so damn strong? It's because it represents oppression, constriction, the power of a king, a tyrannical king at that will do anything he possibly can to wipe out all dissenters and to make sure he stays in power. That's what the birdcage represents. All right, it's literally just putting a barrier over an island, and whatever the king says goes. Okay, but of course they managed to, use their togetherness or whatever. They managed to stall it. There is one thing that managed to prevent it. The sea prism stone that the Smile Factory was made out of. It couldn't slice through that. My immediate thought there was, okay, how come you just don't try to pile everybody into the factory? I mean, I get it. Dressrosa, it's a pretty big island. There's probably like maybe even over 1 million people that live there. There's a lot of people that live on that island, right? And there's more towns than just the capital that we saw. There was like a port town called Acacia, and there's like other, towns and areas of the island. So you couldn't like jam pack every single person in that factory, but it was a pretty big factory. Fun fact, did you guys know that you could technically take every single human being on this planet, all 7 billion plus of us, and you could, if we're all standing like shoulder to shoulder, you could basically cram us into a space that's roughly the size of Manhattan Island in New York. I don't know, that was a while ago I heard that, so there's more humans now, but still, like, if we're all just crammed together, and, we would probably get crushed like sardines, but, if you take everybody in the city and just, everybody get into the Smile Factory, just jam in there, stand on each other's, the burliest of us get on the bottom, and we just form a pyramid, and we just stay in there, and the birdcage can't slice through that, right? But they do manage to break through it. Of course, Luffy, when he defeats Doflamingo, he goes unconscious, and then the birdcage is dismantled. It just falls apart there because he can't maintain it anymore. Oh man, that makes me think that, like, while Doflamingo was fighting against Luffy, he also had to maintain his like awareness of the birdcage itself to make sure it stayed active and was still compressing. You'd think that would have to be something he would do, but then again, he's had his devil fruit for decades. He's been able to really train with it and get to the point, kind of like Crocodile, where he can do things reflexively with it. He doesn't really need to worry about, like, paying attention to all those like supplemental powers. He could just like, all right, I activate the birdcage will compress. I don't need to pay attention to it 24/7 to keep it doing that. It's just like parallel processes with his brain or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much like Doffy's greatest hits, all the things that he can do with his power. He's currently in level 6 Impel Down. He might get freed at some point, though, to fight against that assassin that's coming at him. I'm sure Doffy's part in the story is not over yet. I would certainly like to see him break out, or somebody break him out. And then he shows up later, maybe not necessarily to help the Straw Hats, but just like, okay, I'm here again, it's Doffy time, and everyone's like, yeah! I would like to see him once again in a serious battle in the story at like the 11th hour. That would be pretty cool for Doffy just to show up and he's wearing his prisoner outfit, like, guess who's back, everybody? Like, oh, it's gonna be cool! So yeah, we'll probably see Doffy again. And we also need to see what's underneath his glasses. Some people have thrown out the idea, like, he doesn't even have eyes. He was tortured so much that he literally doesn't have eyes anymore, so he just has these like deep scars there, and he just puts the glasses on to cover them up. I think in an SBS it was shown like he has glasses underneath his glasses, so sort of like a Kakashi thing. Underneath my mask is another mask, Although, at least with Naruto, we did eventually see Kakashi's real face at some point. We yet to see his eyes. I like to think that he might not be missing both eyes. I like to think he is missing one eye, and maybe his other eye is really damaged, so he can't see through it that much. Like, he might be really grisly. Like, he might take off his glasses, and then his other glasses, and probably the third set of glasses, and you'll see, like, his left eye is, like, just a black socket, and there's scars and tissue all around it that's all burned off and crap, and then his other eye is, like, all bloodshot constantly, like, all veiny and stuff, like, sticking out, and it's just disgusting, and he can barely see out of it, right? So it might be like he mostly uses his observation hockey and also his strings to kind of tell what's around him at all times, right? But he's so proud. He's also like, he would never admit to it. He would never admit that he can't, like, his eyes are in that condition, you know? So, yeah. Other than that, maybe he just is missing one eye and his other eye can see perfectly fine, and so that's how he can still look around and stuff. But even so, if we find out, like, something like that, if we find out, like, he's missing both eyes or one eye or anything like that, that means he went up against Luffy and all those people, you know, with limited vision, and he was able to fight that intensely and get that far and, you know, almost defeating Luffy. So, yeah, pretty damn scary. But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this absolutely 100% random video. It seriously was. I didn't plan this at all. It was just like, alright, Ito Ito no Mi. Yeah, we could do something with that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Talk about your favorite Doffy technique below, and the ones that I probably almost certainly forgot about. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking signing out. Bye, everybody. Tekking's Cowlick. Okay, yeah, so I did go back and actually check because I wanted to make sure I got everything major covered anyway. A few techniques I overlooked. First one was Sky Path. This is just his really basic ability that allows him to run his strings through clouds so he can fly. He cannot travel anywhere where there are no clouds, of course, for this reason, so it's not like freedom of flight, and he's got to be careful because if he's like traveling above open ocean and he just runs out of clouds, then he's kind of screwed, although I guess he could just turn back and go back the way he came. Because island clouds are a thing in One Piece, this actually makes sense. Clouds are not just made out of water vapor in this world, at least above the Grand Line with that pyrobrine stuff that forms island clouds. The clouds are at least a little solid. They might not all be the same consistency as the clouds you see in Skypiea, but they might be, you know, at least sturdy enough to handle a string, and that's why he can kind of like travel between islands. He also has his fret saw ability, which is horrifying. This is the power he used to create a string on his leg to literally slice off Law's arm. And this also, by the way, shows that he can make strings not just from his hands, but also his feet. So he could probably shoot strings anywhere on his body that he really wants to. He also has his athlete's thread, which is pretty much the same as pentachromatic strings, except it's from his foot rather than his fingers. There were a few awakened techniques I forgot. All of his awakened techniques have white in the name, like Off-White or Ever-White or Billow-White, but they all involve taking strings from the environment that he, you know, transformed using his fruit and then attacking the enemy with that, like closing in from all sides or adding armament to them. So, yeah, that was pretty much every major technique I forgot. Nothing too crazy I left out. Very applicable fruit. If he ever showed up again, I'm sure we would see even more techniques that he was cooking up with in the prison. I'm sure right now Doffy is sitting in level 6 like, man, I wonder if I can turn my hair into strings. That would be cool. So, yeah, we're definitely going to probably see some new moves from him if he ever shows up. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Signing out. This is such a video. I'm probably not going to do this again. This was very on the spot for me.